Okay, everything is set up. I am getting ready to go into my live stream. This is my first episode of Untethered. This is for Live with Roger Hanson, or through Live with Roger Hanson on Rumble, as well as Beam and X, D Live, and Twitch. We will not be doing uh, these we will not be doing these streams on YouTube because of their really extreme censorship policies that they have in place. A lot of the stuff that we'll be discussing will be adult discussions that pertain to real things that are taking place and discussions that YouTube doesn't approve of. So that's not going to stop us from going ahead and doing it though. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get my sound tests and everything set up, make sure everything's running good. Um, yeah, it sounds good on Beam. So now I'm gonna put that back on Studio. Got to hit refresh on Rumble, make sure it's going. There we go. Sounds good on Rumble. I don't know if it's really working on X yet. I have to hit refresh on there too. And I have to talk so that I can hear myself when I do the sound checks. Okay, sounds good on X. And now I have to hit play on D Live to find out. Sounds good on D Live. Now I am running through Twitch, but I don't have to worry about any issues when it comes to Twitch because the recordings that are being done on Twitch, or I don't have any recordings on Twitch being done. So after this stream, it's gone. It's the only platform that I know that still allows that. So once I'm done with the stream, it's over. I don't have to worry about copyright, anything of that nature, because it's an actual live stream without a recorded copy. So it's good. Is all I'm basically saying. So with that being said, I do have everything set up. Now tonight, I'm going to tell you it's going to be pretty controversial. Tonight's first topic, since this is named Untethered, and that's what the stream's going to be about. Basically, if you don't know what untethered means, you can go in and check the definition for it out. We're going to be discussing topics that aren't really discussed. And tonight's topic for me is going to be the topic of Moloch. Now, I've been hearing a lot of people discussing Moloch and the Luciferian plot to take over the world. And tonight I am going to get into that conversation. I'm going to share an invite to the chats for anybody who wishes to come in and have a conversation about it. They're more than welcome. Uh, and we're gonna talk about all of it. We're gonna talk about Moloch, where it originated, what it actually means in today's world. Um, if I have enough time in the stream, I'm going to discuss how the Nazi regime was inspired by Moloch and the use of blood libel, and how that is what influenced a lot of that, and that is why we hear this thing about Jews and Moloch Ball and the Luciferian plot to rule the world through Satan, and all that crap. So, with that, I am going to make sure that I have all my notes ready, And I do have the links there. I've got to make sure that they are in the chats. I think I've already got one on Beam. I've got one on Rumble as well as I'll put one on X with a, if you wish to join the stream, click the link, which I don't see anybody joining from there. I don't get very much activity on X, so, but I will post it. And also, I am going to do that on, or I already did it on D Live. If you guys want to join on D Live, you are more than welcome. And apparently, I've already done it on Twitch, so I've got all the links posted. If you guys want to join, I'm going to go into Element and post a link on that. I post as well as Skype. So, yeah, I'll do that on my Skype. Now, Skype is coming to an end at the end of the month, you guys know. So that's one thing I do want everybody to know. That's an announcement I think we all should be handing out, so that anybody who has a Skype account should be thinking of relocating to another platform. They have ended it. So if you guys want to use their platform, which is Teams, I believe you can, but they have excuse me, they have decided that they're going to end their services at the end of this month. It'll be at the beginning of April, January, February, no, May. It'll be at the beginning of May, actually. So that's something I guess I should have mentioned before. So yeah, and I will forward from Live with Roger Hanson to my Roger's Real Time Talk Show, my Minds Roundtable, and I'll go ahead and send some stuff to Jaffe's stuff and Naroki Five's chat rooms if they want to come in, and maybe PSEC. But like I said, I doubt if anybody shows up. This is something nobody really likes to talk about. So everybody likes to bring it up in their streams, but they really don't want to talk about what it's really about. That's how bad it is, you know. You got a lot of people out there who know what it actually means and what it supports, but they don't care. You know what I mean? They just throw these words around so that they can get views and become popular among other people who have absolutely no idea what they're talking about when they mention Moloch Ball and they mention Luciferian plots and they mention, you know, those horrible, evil Jews that are trying to take over the world, you know, things of that nature. They know what it's all about. So, but the only reason why they do it is because they want to gain viewers. They want to become popular. Either that, or they're trying to push an agenda. You know what I mean? And I'll just go ahead and say it. They're white supremacists. There's people who are white supremacists that pretend like they're not, and the only reason why they're doing it is because they want to spread their message. They want to let everybody think that they aren't racist, but in reality they are racist, and they're trying to push these old anti-Semitic propaganda. It's anti-Semitic propaganda. And, you know, I was always against using that word anti-Semitic until just recently, actually, you know. It's like these people have turned around and used that as a weapon. They've weaponized that too, you know what I mean? Oh, it's not anti-Semitic. There's a whole bunch of anti-Semitics. Well, yeah, you're right. Okay, but still, that's what you're doing. You're spreading a hateful message that has killed millions of people throughout history, and you have no problem with it. You're okay with that, you know. That's what the issue's about. It's not about what's Semitic and what's not Semitic. It's about what you're doing by spreading your information. So let me pull up my notes, and we will get started with some of the stuff that I wanted to discuss tonight. So, all right. So now, this is also going to be the last time I bring this up because, to be honest with you, um, th- this discussion actually disgusts me. Okay, it's a disgusting, hateful um, topic that I really do not like. But the reason why I'm bringing it up is because it's being mentioned a lot by a lot of people, and I have a history where I had to research this stuff. Okay, back when I first started getting into streaming, I wanted to. I wanted to actually get into this alt media, the supposed alt media, and try to be a part of that. And I started watching streams from people who were supposedly religious, and they would get on and they would start talking about this Luciferian plan to take over the world and spread evil and all of this stuff. And then they would start talking about Moloch, and they would start talking about hateful, racist things. Okay, that I it was actually turning my stomach. Now this isn't in today's world, like within the last 5 or 6 years, which this during this time period it's really gone up really high, but it was around even before then. This was like back during the time when Alex Jones was first getting a lot of shit, where people were kicking him off of his platforms and stuff like that, or off their platforms. He got kicked off of X and Facebook, and I actually had this channel, the Praetorian, going on Facebook as a page and a group, and I was doing streams with my brother where I wanted to do that with him together for the Praetorian, and it got so out of hand with these videos and these posts that it started disgusting me, because I would listen to them and then I would go and do the research on it, and I started finding out what this stuff was really all about, and it started disgusting me, to the point where I finally walked away from it. I was doing research with another channel that I have called this. Now it's called Strange Stories, but at the time it was called The Strange, the Bizarre, the Unusual. I like it, and I had a page and a group set up on Facebook for that too. And I was doing research with that as well as with the Praetorian, and digging into some of this stuff and finding out what it was really about. And the more I started finding out, the more disgusted I got with it, until I finally walked away from the strange and the bizarre. And eventually, because of all the crap with Alex Jones and a lot of these supposed alt right uh, news outlets, as they called themselves during the time, um, I ended up getting a lot of shit on Facebook because of them. And what they would do is they would literally come on the internet and they would start spreading just straight outright lies. Okay, um, and these were impossibly insane lies that had absolutely no truth to them whatsoever, and they would justify it by start talking verses out of the Bible, like that was what justified them to get on and start spreading hateful messages because it's written in the Bible. Um, so that's when I finally backed away from the Praetorian for a while, because I was finally sick and tired of it. It it was really, really a disgusting um, thing that I had gone through. And the more you start researching this stuff and finding out the information, the worse it gets. Okay, um, so just to make it clear on that, you know what I mean. This stuff is not um, the best of information. To be honest with you, this is the stuff that you hear about that just curls your stomach. I mean, there's nothing good about it at all. So um, I'm pulling everything up. I got all my information that I pulled together, and like I said, the links are posted in the chats. If you guys want to come in and you want to talk about this stuff, then you are more than welcome. This is the first episode. This isn't going to be a run on either. Like, I'm just going to do this episode for this topic, and later when I come back, I'll have another topic. Untethered is going to be about, well, stuff like this. It's going to be about controversial stuff. It might have some stuff to do with UFOs and, the paranormal, things of that nature as well. But we're also going to have topics about entertainment, current events that don't have to particularly have anything to do with politics. So it's going to be a variety of things that we're going to be talking about. One thing I do want to actually get involved in is uh, I want to talk about P. Diddy and this freaking baby oil shit. Like, that is something that really is the biggest mystery to me. They were talking about Costco's, and Costco's. He had a receipt, I guess, from Costco saying that he had bought all of this baby oil from them. Well, a few people that were on the internet went in and they freaking did research, and they found out that Costco's has never sold baby oil. They've never put it on their freaking on their counters. So my first question is, where the hell did he get the baby oil? You know what I mean? That's a mystery to me. So that's something that I would actually like to figure out too. So maybe we'll have an episode where we talk about P Diddy, and we can get into some of the strange things that actually is going on when it comes to him and his case. You know what I mean? So now understand too that I have done quite a bit of research when it comes to ball. This goes back to a lot of the older stuff that I had when I first started doing all this stuff, and it's not pretty, like I said earlier. So a lot of it I did forget, and I had to go back through and pull up the information because, like I said, I walked away from a lot of this a long time ago. So um, it was something that I really wasn't wasn't wanting to get into when it comes to these topics. But I figured, why not? Let's go ahead and do this. So first of all, what I want to do is I want to clear up one um, thing that concerns uh, Moloch. Everybody's always trying to connect Moloch with Carthage. No matter where you go on the internet and you try to find the information, they always come up with these feeble attempts at trying to connect Moloch with sacrificial areas that were located in, in in and around the the Levant, which is the area where Israel's at. Now, they have found evidence there that shows there may have been a type of sacrifice, human sacrifice that took place. What they found there is they found babies or fetuses that were in jars. Now, up on the background here, where you see all of those little baby jars right there, that is a topet. Okay, that's a topet. That is what they are referring to. These are the actual topets that were um, being used for these babies that were supposed to be offered to this evil deity known as Moloch, with his arms stretched out and fire spilling from his mouth, which, by the way, nobody has ever found evidence to have ever existed. They said, well, the Jews hated the worship of it so bad that they decimated it. And I've mentioned this in previous episodes that that shouldn't actually be an issue. If you pay attention to these archaeologists when they go out to a work site, they use little bitty freaking brushes so that they can move each inch of dirt. They don't only go and they don't only pull up like full vases, fully formed vases. They pull up the little fragments of vases that are found in the dirt, and they methodically sift through it so they can find each piece. So, if these statues that are depicted or being pushed did exist, they would have been found. Okay, it doesn't matter how bad they were broken up or destroyed; they would have been found. It's like with these tofits right here. Okay, they can tell you that there are signs of burning on the bases that were there. Now, the thing about it is um, they know that there has been burning when it comes to this, but they don't know for sure if the babies were alive or dead. These could have been stillborn babies. These could have been babies that had already died and they were used and as an offering. They could have been a lot of different things. There's no evidence that these babies were actually alive when they were being used in this manner. And that is something that a lot of people need to understand when it comes to this. And this, okay, what you're looking at is actually something that has an inscription on it. It's MLK, which isn't the same Moloch as what's in the Levant. What you're looking at here is a topeth from Carthage. Okay, um, they haven't found any kind of topeth whatsoever or topet in the Levant at all. None of this. They found the bases, but they've never found the the actual topet for for these rituals, and that's also what a lot of scholars are discussing. They're discussing, was this MLK a ritual or it was an actual deity? Now, usually when, especially in the Bible, when they discuss deities, they specifically say, okay, the deity. And they go right into detail about it. With Moloch, the way that Moloch is written in these scriptures is very vague. It's hard to tell if it's actually just a ritual or if it's a deity that's a part, of an actual religion. There's been no altars or anything that specifically worships Moloch. Okay, it's just mentioned, and that's another interesting thing that comes into play. Now, with um, the Topet in Carthage, okay, and this goes back to what I was originally talking about. They tried to link all of these archaeological finds that they have found to Carthage. Okay, now the thing about this is Carthage has absolutely nothing to do with the people of the Levant, other than the fact that it's the homeland of the Phoenicians. Okay, that's their homeland, north of them. And there, in that area, they haven't found any topits whatsoever. It's just in northern Africa and the western Mediterranean. Okay, so that is something that really stands out to me. Okay, that's something that I wasn't really aware of until I started doing my recent research of everything. So in reality, what happened is this type of ritual that was taking place actually happened in North Africa and the Western Mediterranean, which is all a part of Crete. It's a part of Carthage. It's a part of Spain. Then it also has Rome, or what would eventually become Rome. Um, Now the Greeks and the Phoenicians didn't get along whatsoever. There was a lot of, well, there was wars, the Punic Wars, and everything that took place. But with all of that being said, the whole point of it is this ritual was taking place in the area of the same people who eventually started accusing the Jews of doing the same thing that they themselves were doing. Okay, and that's something that really stuck out to me. The same people who made these accusations later on in history are the same ones who actually did the rituals, and I didn't understand why until here recently. Okay, now before white supremacists who were anti-Semitic um, started falsely accusing Jews of murdering Christians, okay, in order to use their blood in, in the performance of like religious rituals, which that's what they did in the blood libels. Before they started doing that, that was what the the old uh, religious groups like the Jews were doing when they were talking um, about well the Romans and people that were outside of their faith. Okay, um, well that was actually ended, but it was dismissed. Okay, all these accusations were dismissed about Christian communities and the Roman Empire doing these things, as well as the Canaanites and a lot of the other religions that were around in that time. Those were actually dismissed because, well, it just came to an end. But then it reappeared again back in the medieval period, okay, where Christians began to slander the Jews. Okay, and then when they started slandering the Jews, they started using Moloch and these rituals as a way of saying that they are going out and they're murdering, uh, making the claim that they were murdering uh, Christian children, okay, in order to do like blood rituals and stuff. So this is where the plot thickens. This is where it starts getting really, really um, demented and horrible. This is the stuff that eventually led up to the Nazi regime gaining power. They used the blood libel and ritual murder libel, whatever you want to call it, blood accusations as a way of fueling anti-Semitic uh, anti-Semitic tropes, basically. That's what it was. It was tropes. Um, and it just it began to grow, and it began to grow, and they also used blood libels and claims that Jews required blood so that they could use it in the baking of matzos. That's supposed to be unleavened flattened bread, which is eaten during Passover. They also had earlier versions of the blood libel that accused Jews of ritually reenacting the crucifixion while they did it. You know what I mean? And this is all a history that people don't want to talk about because it's very, very evil to a lot of people. It doesn't matter. Like the only people that take enjoyment out of this are um, hateful, anti-Semitic, white supremacists, and that's basically it. And they know the story behind all this stuff, and you can find it. It's everywhere. Okay, there's more on this subject on the internet than there is for most other things, but nobody looks for it because they don't know about it. The people who do know about it are pretending that they aren't white supremacists, or they know about it and they just don't care. Okay, um, this this is something that's very disturbing to me in a society where we're supposed to be wanting to be better than what we used to. I'm starting to see this same kind of behavior pop up again, and I don't know if most of the people that I'm around who are talking this kind of stuff is even aware of that's what they're promoting. You know what I mean? I don't know that. But I do know that when they speak this stuff, this is what they're promoting. It doesn't matter if they believe in it or not. Okay? It doesn't matter if what they say. This is what you're promoting. Okay? This what you do and what you say needs to be held accountable. Okay, you are promoting the idea that frickin' these people are killing frickin' Christian babies so that frickin' they can commit frickin' uh, blood rituals. Okay, and you're actually selling the product. You're being introduced to this stuff in the first place, and you're being introduced to this stuff by people who are they don't want these Jews around. They want them all dead. It doesn't, you know. You might be a person who just has a problem with some of the political issues that are going on concerning Jews, okay? But you need to understand that there's a guy standing behind you who doesn't frickin' actually care about that. They want to see all these Jews dead. Okay. And they've been doing this for quite some time. All right. Now, before it was the Jews who were being persecuted, the same stuff was being used against um, people who were freaking not Jew. Okay, this was used by people who were Canaanites. This was used by people against people who were Phoenicians. This was used by people who were Roman, and it all started with Moloch. Okay, it all started with this belief about Moloch, and Moloch was written in the Old Testament, one verse right after the other. Okay, and I can go through some of those. But getting back to Carthage, the one thing I do have to point out is the deities that were in Carthage were not named Moloch at all whatsoever. Now Baal Haman was the chief god of Carthage. Okay, and Carthage was a Phoenician colony, and it became powerful It was a powerful maritime empire, and it was located in North Africa on the other side of Egypt. That wasn't close to the Levant. It was like you had the Levant, then you had uh, the Sion, and then you had um, Egypt, and then right next to Egypt, that was Carthage. So that's where it was located, and then it went up into Spain, and then curled around from Spain over to Rome. Okay, and this was before the Roman Empire too. So, well, the Roman Empire was probably in its infancy, most likely, because um, there was actually a battle between the Romans, I believe, the Romans and what's his name, the guy with the elephant. My goodness, now I'm having a brain fart. But my whole point is Baal Haman was the chief entity. Okay, now the name Baal Haman has also been debated among the scholarly circles. It's uh, usually translated as Lord of the Brazier or Lord of the Incense Altars. Now, some interpretations connect Haman to the Akkadian word Amun, which is hot, burning, or Egyptian Amun or Aman. Uh, though the connection does remain speculative. That's a far-reaching thing right there, connecting Aman or Amun to Haman. So um, most of them do agree though that it usually has to do with hot, burning, and brazier. So Haman was also the Phoenicians' version of Hercules. All right, just so you guys understand that this is what we're talking about. He would have been the equivalence of Hercules with the Phoenicians. You had Hercules or Hercules, which is Hercules, and that was Greek. And then you had Haman, which was the Phoenician god, the Phoenician version of Hercules. Now, usually in some representations, he appears as like an elderly man. He's supposed to have a long beard, and that's supposed to suggest wisdom and authority. Now, in later Greco-Roman times, he was synchronized with Cronus or Saturn. Okay, that was reinforcing his role as like an ancient, powerful ruler, and this was later on after the uh, after the Phoenicians, the Greco-Roman times. So that's something to take into place. Now, Baal Haman was paired with the goddess Tanit. Now, Tanit is the one where the sacrifices would have infant sacrifices would have been made through. Now, Tanit was the reptilian goddess who a lot of people have heard about on the island of Crete. Okay, that's who they're talking about. And she was Haman's consort. That's the general word that's being used or used by people. She served as his consort. Now, while Baal Haman was the god of fire and kingship, uh, uh, he was basically the generative force. Tanit represented the celestial, lunar, and material aspects of divinity. Okay, now together they formed a divine couple central to Carthaginian religion, which was basically the combination of both of those deities' attributes. So, Baal Haman, like I said, was associated with fire. And fire is both a life giving force and a destructive element as well. Okay, now this connection fueled the controversial debate over child sacrifice in Carthage, particularly at the Tophet of Salambu, which that's what you're looking at right there. That is the Tophet of Salambu. Now, inscriptions and cremated remains, they have been discovered, okay? Some ancient sources, including Diodorus, Siculus, and Plutarch, they claim the Carthaginians sacrificed infants to Baal Haman in times of crisis. Now, some scholars have argued that the remains found at Carthage on the Tophets were not necessarily sacrificial victims, but rather ritual burials of stillborns or deceased infants. Now, there are stele inscriptions in the Tophets that often mention Molk, which is MLK. The best way to pronounce it in our terms is MOLK, Molk. And that's a term that may refer to like a vow, an offering, or a ritual act. Though its precise meaning is pretty debatable. Like they're still debating over what that actually means. So that's what I'm talking about. Like you have these sacrifices to Haman and sacrifices to Tanit with the inscription MLK on it. Okay. And that is where they're trying to connect Moloch, that's been preached about all over Levant, to Carthage. Okay. And their evidence in the Levant is very, very shaky. Just to put that out there, okay? They really don't have very much information. And when they always talk about it, even the archaeologists do it, which makes me think that they're like religiously biased because they always go back to Carthage. But over here in Carthage, we have all of this information, and like all the stuff that I just described to you about Carthage has absolutely nothing to do with the Jewish or the Christian religion whatsoever. Okay, nothing whatsoever. But they keep going back to it. And if you read the information, you'll find out that that is the case. They have shaky evidence, and to reinforce their findings, they always go back to, well, over here in Carthage, there's more evidence that's presented, and that has always been one argument that I have always had when it comes to these people and the claims that they have made. It is completely unfounded, in my opinion. So, with me, that's something that I have found, and yeah, I mean, there is a really, really good chance that there has been sacrifices that were made. But what I'm trying to say is there is no evidence proving that this was an actual deity. Okay. This could have been a ritual or a sacrifice. There's no evidence that it's a sacrifice yet, that these babies were actually born or still alive. They could have been stillborn babies that were used, and stuff of that nature. Now, there has been some misconceptions too. A lot of people in religious circles like to talk about Milcom. He was an Ammonite deity, and they like to say that he was actually a part of the he was one of the deities that they considered to be Moloch, and that he was getting people were sacrificing infants to Milcom, Now, I did research on that one, and I found out that Milcom, or you can spell it Milcom or Milkom. He was a national deity of the Ammonites. I keep saying the Amorites, but this is the Ammonites. So I want to point that out. Okay. Now, the Ammonites are people who lived east of ancient Israel in present day Jordan. Okay. Now, he's often associated with Moloch in biblical texts. This is somebody who has been pretty much called out by the Jews, saying that he was Moloch in the biblical text. And he's thought to have been a god of war. He also was, he represented kingship. And he also possibly represented the underworld. The name Molcom derived or could have derived from the root MLK, um, which means king or ruler, similar to other West Semitic deities. Okay. Now, the biblical references to Milcom is 1 Kings 11:5, 7, and 33, and it describes how King Solomon built high places for Milcom as a part of his, as part of his foreign wives' influence. And a lot of people considered that as an act of apostasy. So it goes on from there to 2 Kings of 23:13, which is about during King Josiah's religious reforms. Now, and during that time, he destroyed those same high places where Malcolm was worshipped. After that, it also goes into Zephaniah 1:5, which condemns those who swear by both Yahweh and Milcom, which indicates like a continued syncretism between Yahweh worship and Milcom's cult. So that's basically the biblical background for that. Okay, but now I want to talk about the archaeological and extra biblical mentions. So this is where I want to really bring it up. Now, the Ammonites inscriptions on the Tel Saran bottle, which was found, and this bottle was between the 8th and 7th century BCE. It includes references to Ammonite kings and their devotion to Milcom, okay, which does confirm Milcom's importance to the Ammonite religion. Now, in Assyrian records, Milcom is indirectly mentioned too through reference to Ammonite rulers who had names incorporating the divine element MLK. So that right there has to do with archaeology and what they've found. Okay, and like I said, MLK, they don't really know for sure if it's actually a deity or if it's a ritual. Okay, so the Bible suggests a link between Milcom and human sacrifice. Okay, but the thing of it is there's no direct archaeological evidence, and well, they do have some evidence, but it's limited. It's very small. You know what I mean? So that takes us on to other ones. Now, this all just deals with Milcom. Okay, this is the one that everybody claims is supposed to be who Moloch is. Now we go on to Leviticus 18:21, 22 through 5, which warns against giving children to Moloch or MLK, which is sometimes identified with Milcom. Now, these passages implies a practice of child sacrifice, though a lot of scholars debate whether this refers to a specific ritual or just a broader devotion. Okay. After that, you go on to 2 Kings 23:10, okay, which describes the destruction of Topheth, Topheth, in the valley of Hinnom. This is where children were supposedly burned as offerings. Okay, while often linked to Moloch, some scholars suggest it could also relate to Ammonite religious practices. And also, when it comes to the Valley of Hinnom, this is supposed to be the origins of where the Christians came up with their concept of hell. Okay, so there's a lot of um, deep lore involved in this area. And I've done research on this valley, and I'm going to tell you right now, it's very, very suspicious. It's very conflicting. Okay, you have some religious scholars who say, well, it did exist. It was down here in this valley. And they can even tell you where the borders were and everything. But to this day, they don't know exactly where it was located, or they claim they know where it's located. But not everybody agrees to it. Some say, well, we don't know where the actual location of Topheth was. That was supposed to have these altars, okay, that were mentioned in the Bible. And then you have other people saying, no, we've got it here. It's down here on the south side of Jerusalem's wall. You know, so you have these conflicting outlets that are one side saying we don't know where the exact location is, and then you have another one saying, oh, this is where it is. It's written in the Bible. This is where it is, and they even have a reference of where this was supposed to have taken place that couldn't have been there because the wall would have been farther out, preventing these kind of rituals to take place within, because it would have been within the the walls of Jerusalem, and they wouldn't have tolerated that, you know. So with this Valley of Hinnom, that is a very, very interesting topic. A lot of people believe this, and the truth is this is probably one of the stories that has the least amount of credible evidence to back it up. Okay, this is just 100%, in my opinion, this is 100% full of garbage. There's no evidence that backs this up whatsoever. So, with that being said, I am going to go on to Jeremiah 49, which is 1 through 3. And it mentions Milcom in a prophecy against Ammon. Okay, now it does, but it doesn't explicitly mention human sacrifice. Okay, um, this just mentions Milcom as a prophecy against Ammon. That's it. Now, although the Bible associates Milcom with forbidden practices, there has been no direct archaeological evidence that confirms human sacrifices to Milcom specifically. Okay, just so everybody understands that. Um, this is where they start pumping out the bullshit. Okay, this is where they start saying, however, given the broader Semitic context, with neighboring cultures such as the Moabites, Komesh is who that is, and Phoenicians, Baal and Tanit, you know, uh, they had sacrificial elements. It is possible that similar practices existed in Ammonite religion. This is the kind of stuff they push. And that's what I've been finding over and over again. Now, Kamash is another one that I do want to want to go over again. I believe I should have enough time. If I don't, I could probably go ahead and go further with it. And it's like I said, if you guys have any feedback or you want to come on to the show and say something, I've got the links posted. Come in, man. Say your piece. And that's why I've got this show named Untethered. It's about coming in and speaking your mind, you know, especially if you're one of those die-hard, hardcore religious people who love to insist that you're right and that people like me are just, horrible, evil Satanists who want to promote and propagate Luciferian agendas. Um, I'm just coming on here calling you out on your bullshit. You're propagating hatred and using your God as an excuse for doing that. Okay, you've not only propagated it, you've pushed this agenda so that you could murder millions and millions and millions of people over thousands of years. Okay, so that is my stance on it. That's why I did the show, because this is it. From this point on, I will never discuss this again. Okay, this is the most disgusting, horrible information that could ever be discussed on the internet or in real life. Okay, and I've heard this over and over and over and over again, and every single person who hears this stuff and they believe this stuff is losing another level of intelligence every time they hear it. Okay, it's just pushing hate, telling people that freaking it's okay to hate and it's okay to murder and it's okay to slaughter freaking people by the thousands because freaking you hate them because of their religious beliefs or the color of their skin or their religious ideologies, whatever. That's what this is about. So I can't believe I just finally did that. You know what I mean? So let me see here. I'll check and see if we've got anybody in here who actually has any comments or any feedback. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, okay. It was Angel. He was in Skype, so we got that one taken care of. Um, yeah, so far everything looks good. It doesn't look like we have any kind of feedback on that. I just wanted to stop and take a second to check, make sure if anybody has made any comments in the chat sections before I move on. Now, it's like I said too. If you guys do want to join in and you want to put your input in, you can. And just because you're on Twitch doesn't mean that this is going to affect you. Because, like I said, the stream is gone after I'm done streaming, so there's no recording that's going to be on there. So if you are on Twitch and you want to come in, click on that link, come on in, and don't worry about it. It's not going to have you after the stream. It's going to be gone. And that actually is pretty cool, because from where I'm at, because I stream across different platforms, so I do find it pretty cool that that you can do that. Did I stream to Kick tonight? I don't think I did. Oh wow. Okay. So let me see here. Let me. So yeah, I believe I am going to take a break, go get me some coffee and everything, and I will be back for another part. Okay, I am back now after taking a quick break so that I could kind of cool my nerves down before I went on further with this. I wanted to also drink some coffee and stuff of that nature. I also wanted to kind of see what's going on with the chats. It looks like um, it looks like Dave mentioned something. He posted up in his PSEC crew and friends thing, never fear confrontation. How to stay calm in any confrontation. So I thought it was something that pertained to what I was talking about, but I don't know. It could have been, knowing him, it could have been. But with that, I wanted to step it up a little bit on the topic. We had left off where I had just finished talking about what was it? Milky. And now I want to get into Kamesh, which is a Moabite deity. This is another deity that was um, mentioned in the Old Testament of the Bible or the Torah, whichever one you want to call it. You can call it the Torah or the Old Testament. And they mention um, they mention Moloch, or the Moabite deity Komesh. You'll find that. Well, I'll just do a breakdown of uh, Kings 3:27, or Second Kings 3:27. Now, lines 12 through 14 uh, is uh, is where I want to really focus in on. So, line 12, um, according to archaeological findings um, from other Near Eastern cultures, like the Phoenicians, uh, they do uh, mention that. They throw a spill out about, well, because of indications from Near Eastern cultures. And it's like I said before, you'll find that all through these archaeological findings, which tells me straight up that that's just like um, that's bias. Is basically it. They really don't have any archaeological findings, but you know, since their findings, they do have findings from other ancient Near East cultures, and then they'll throw up the Phoenicians. They'll always go back to the Phoenicians. It's the Phoenicians that indicate that child sacrifice was a part of their practices. And this is riddled all um, through these findings. They always go right back to Carthage. Um, if if they believe that there was a deity that worshipped or did human sacrifices, but they didn't have very much evidence of it, they'll always mention Carthage. You know, and like their evidence in Carthage really isn't concrete either. You know what I mean? Um, now, when it comes to uh, Carthage, the reason why they refer to it is there's inscriptions and burial sites, which is Tophets. They've been found containing urns with cremated remains of infants. Now, these sacrifices were made to Bahamond and Tanit. Those are deities, okay? Now, they do share some similarities to Kamesh in terms of like Near Eastern worship and stuff of that nature. Um, but like I said, in the Levant, there has been no evidence of any Tophets whatsoever being found. Now, a Tophet is like that photo back there in my background, okay, that I have posted up. That's a Tophet. Um, Tophets were not big statues of Moloch Baal. whoever Moloch Baal was, a horned devil with his hand stretched out and fire coming out of his freaking mouth. That's not what it was. This is what they're talking about right there. So, and that is actually a photo that was taken um, by an archaeological uh, an archaeological program that had been taking place. People who were out there actually getting their hands dirty and finding the data. You know what I mean? So you're looking at what it was, what it looks like. Just be aware of that. That's what that is on that photo, which to me doesn't look anything like what's been described in the Bible or the Torah or whatever you want to call it. And like I said, these sacrifices were made to Baal, Haman, and Tanit. Okay, and they do share some similarities to Kamish. Now, if you want to find a source for that, I can also post that source. You can find the source with what I just said with Archaeology Magazine. I can post that into the comment sections if you guys wish to check it out yourself. So I'm putting them in there now. Feel free to copy the link and check it out yourself, because like I said, if you want to go down this rabbit hole and start talking about crazy shit, this is what you need to do. Don't go walking into this barefooted, because you're gonna get cuts on your feet if you do. So here we go. This is Archaeology Magazine. This is what they have covered over, or they've gone over concerning child sacrifice. It is a pretty interesting read. So I suggest if you guys are interested, check it out. It's up to you if you want to do that or not. So now we're going to go to line 13. At sites like Carthage, evidence suggests that child sacrifice, children were sacrificed to deities like Baal Haman. This is a common theme that you'll always see, where they refer to like physical inscriptions that are found in Carthage. Okay, and it mentions milk sacrifice, or offering of children. MLK is what they believe that it means, but there is no definitive proof. They have the MLK inscription on the Topheth. Okay. Now, even though that this is of Phoenician practices, the Moabites were supposed to have worshipped Chemosh, and they are supposed to have had cultural and religious similarities with those other Western Semitic groups. You know what I'm saying? Now, the thing that really ties Chemosh to the Old Testament is this thing that they call the Misha Stele. And the Misha Stele records Moabite devotion to Chemosh, and that's mentioned also in 2 Kings 3:27, which describes King Misha sacrificing his eldest son as a burnt offering. Okay. Now, according to what you'll hear most people say, they'll try to say that these findings pertain to like different cultures, but they provide like this broader context of understanding and prevalence of child sacrifice in the region. They really think that it does support the notion that similar practices could have been associated with Kamesh among the Moabites. Um, Now, this connects the Carthaginians' evidence with the Moabites' uh, description in the Bible, apparently. You know what I mean? Um, but you need to understand, um, they the that's the best biblical evidence of Moabite human sacrifice to Kamesh out of everything. And the thing about it is they don't mention Moloch whatsoever. I mean, it's not even in that verse. It's pretty interesting that they even do that. Now, the thing that really gets it with the Moabites and Kamesh is 2 Kings 3:26 and 3:27. Okay, and it says, "And when the king of Moab saw the battle was too sore or sour for him, he took his he took with him 700 men that drew swords to break through even unto the kingdom of Edom, but they could not. Then he took his eldest son that should have reigned in his stead, and offered him for a burnt offering upon the wall. And there was great indignation against Israel, and they departed from him and returned to their own land." Now, the passage is supposed to directly describe King Mesha of Moab sacrificing his own son. Uh, this is a human sacrifice, likely to Kamesh, according to them, likely to Kamesh, to gain like divine favor in battle. Now, let's point this out though. The Misha Stele doesn't explicitly mention child sacrifice, but it does affirm Kamesh's role in war and the demand for offerings, which they believe implies the possibility of human sacrifice. But there's no evidence that says that. Now, in Second Kings 3:27, King Mesha sacrifices his son, likely to Kamesh. All right. But after that, you go to Judges 11, 30, 31, and 39, um, which, while not Kamesh, Jephthah's sacrifices his daughter, and has parallels to regional human sacrificial traditions, supposedly. You know what I mean? But understand, this is all written in the Bible, okay? Now, after that, when you go in and you look at the archaeological evidence, they'll always throw Carthage back at you, okay? Instead of them actually having archaeological evidence that backs up these verses in the Bible, they will say, well, archaeological evidence from Carthage suggests child sacrifice was practiced among the West Semitic cultures. Okay, so you need to understand that. This is what the archaeological uh, world is doing. They're always going back to Carthage when they don't have evidence to back up anything that they're saying is true. And you'll see it all through this stuff. They have very flimsy evidence backing up anything that they've said. Now, Venetia still, like I said, it doesn't mention human sacrifice explicitly, um, but it does show the warrior god nature of Kamesh. Okay, and because of that, it makes it plausible that Kamesh uh, would require extreme offerings. That's the mentality behind it. Now, the Bible directly states that Mesha sacrificed his son in battle, likely to Kamesh. The Mesha stele is supposed to confirm Kamesh's role in Moabite religion, but does not specify human sacrifice whatsoever. Okay. Now, archaeology from Carthage, which is a Phoenician site, is supposed to confirm that child sacrifices were common, and that's what they draw off of. And it was common in related Semitic cultures, making it plausible for the Moabites to sacrifice their babies to a deity for favor, which that's the common thing that they always do. They always mention the Carthage and the Carthaginians sacrificing their babies to the deities of, actually it's the deities of Haman and Tanit. But if you read it in these scriptures, it's Moloch or MLK, which could be a deity, but there's no evidence proving that it's a deity. Or it could be a ritual that was taking place. And it goes even deeper because not only could it possibly be a ritual, but the babies might be stillborn if it did take place. They could have been stillborn, already dead babies that were sacrificed. And the reason why I want to mention that is because I want to go back to Baal Haman, okay, and kind of describe a little bit about how he was as a deity, and then Tanit. Now, Baal Haman was a complex and powerful god. He was deeply tied to fire, fertility, and divine rulership. Now, his role in Carthaginian society, particularly in rituals and offers, made him one of the most significant deities in the Western Mediterranean. His legacy persisted through syncretism with Kronos and Saturn, and elements of his worship may have influenced later religious traditions in North Africa. Now, Tanit was the principal goddess of Carthage. This deity was revered as a sky deity, protector of the city, and symbol of fertility and motherhood. She was the consort of Baal Haman, the chief Carthaginian god, and was widely venerated across the Western Mediterranean, particularly in North Africa, Sardinia, and Spain. Now, the origin of Tanit's names are unclear, but some scholars link it to Phoenician, Berber, and Semitic roots. Some interpretations suggest that Tanis means serpent lady or great one in Phoenician. Others propose a connection to Berber and Punic fertility cults, indicating that she may have evolved from a pre-Phoenician goddess in North Africa. Now, she was associated with birth, motherhood, and renewal, often depicted as a protector of children and women. Okay, so that to me kind of goes against this whole idea that people are taking live babies and sacrificing them to a deity. Now, you also have to realize the difference in time, like our time period compared to theirs is like day and night. So you need to understand that this is a society that would probably see it as something divine if their dead child who died at childbirth was used in a ritual. It would probably help mothers during that time period. If any mothers today actually had to go through that situation, they know how traumatic that is for them. So that's something that would be constant even back then. So seeing a mother offering her dead stillborn child to their deity, the one they believe in, would actually make sense in my mind. Um, that would make more sense than to offer a living child to a deity so that you could have favor with your God. It's pretty that's pretty horrible, you know. Um, that's just my take on it. But like I said, you know, she was uh, depicted as a protector of children and women. Okay. In Carthage, she was venerated as the city's divine protector, ensuring its safety in times of war. She was linked to the moon, stars, and heavens, reinforcing her role as a guide and protector. In some contexts, Tanit was connected to death in the afterlife, particularly in her Punic and North African cults. Tannis, Tanit's most recognizable symbol is the Tanit sign, which appears throughout Carthaginian religious sites. A stylized figure with a triangular body, outstretched arms, and a circular head, often interpreted as a female form, a symbol of the divine feminine, or a celestial sign. Found on temples, stelae, and sacrificial tofits, reinforcing her prominence in Punic religious life. Now, Tanit was regarded as the consort of Baal-Haman, which I had just said, the supreme Carthaginian deity. So that breaks it down on those two. And now, when I say limited, I mean there is no direct archaeological evidence, such as an inscription or physical remains, explicitly stating that the Moabites under King Mesha practiced child sacrifice to Chemosh, which is described in 2 Kings 3:27. Okay, now they'll they'll try to tell you all the stuff I said about Carthage and everything, but you have to understand that's all circumstantial, and it's also drawn off of contextual evidence, and that's only uh, to suggest that these practices were plausible. Okay, so you need to understand that before I go into the archaeological uh, evidence that does exist. Now, the Mesha stele is indirect evidence, okay, and that was discussed or discovered in like 1868, dating to the 9th century BCE, and it was written by King Mesha of Moab. It credits Chemosh for Moab's victory. Now, it does not mention human sacrifice at all, but it does describe how Mesha devoted uh, cities to Chemosh. Okay, a term that often refers to like complete destruction or offering an entire city to a deity. Now, that supports the idea that Moabites practiced extreme religious devotion, uh, which could have included human sacrifices. Now, the reference to this I can also post if you guys want to check that out. There's actually two of them that I can do. I'll pop those into the chat. So if you guys want to check those out, you can check those out too. Because, like I said, this is the last time I will be discussing this topic. So if you guys want to check this out yourself, you are more than welcome to check it out. Feel free to. Um, but it's just not going to happen with me anymore. just to be serious, it's just not going to. I'm sick of all of this stuff. So, matter of fact, I should probably be careful about making these posts on Twitch in the chat. I've been real cautious about doing them on on the video part, but I could be messing up on the whole thing when it comes to. Um, so, with that being said, I've put out those on there now. Um, Again, what they do on this subject is they always go back to the Carthaginian Tophids, and they talk about evidence from Carthage, Carthage of Semitic child sacrifice. This is their theme. This is what they do, and they use the Mesha Stele to push that there's a possibility of religious devotion. And the whole thing about this stele, it gets really deep into another topic that is very, very controversial. And this also does include not only the Moabites, but like Jewish practices when it comes to battle and destroying entire towns because it's supposed to be um, a ritual sacrifice to not just the Moabite deities, but even the Jewish practice it themselves. So that gets into a whole new area of topic that doesn't have anything to do with child sacrifice, but that's something that we could talk about. But like I said, they always fall back to Carthage, and they start talking about the excavations in Carthage, which uncovered the Tophids burial sites. And these had urns filled with cremated infant remains. They always do it. Okay, now they'll also bring up the idea that these sites mention Balhaman and Tanit. They have MLK on it, but they never have anything that says specifically Molk, okay, or Moloch, which actually they do have Molk, which is MLK, but they never say Moloch. And Molk, honestly, they don't know for sure if it's actually a deity or if it's a ritual. So, and then I've been beating everybody's brow on this stream about that, repeating it a lot. So it's kind of getting annoying. I apologize. Now, um, they don't have anything that connects the Moabites. All they say is the Moabites were culturally and religiously connected to groups like the Carthaginians, which make it plausible. Now, um, the reason why this evidence is so limited is there's no physical evidence like bones and inscriptions that explicitly confirms Moabite child sacrifice. The Mishi stele confirms Kamesh's worship, but it doesn't mention child sacrifice directly. The closest hard evidence comes from Phoenician Carthage, okay, which they always do. And I mentioned that. I'm going to leave it alone. Now, um, strong circumstantial evidence is what they refer to it as with this Misha stele. Then they also say with the Misha stele and the Phoenicia Tophids together, they suggest Moabites may have practiced child sacrifice, even though there's no archaeological evidence that confirms confirms it whatsoever. The only thing they go off of is the Bible's account of King Misha's sacrifice, which is in 2 Kings 3:27, and that remains unverified archaeologically. Um, the only reason why they say that it's good is because it fits within regional religious customs that they suppose happened. Now, that is the thing that I want to press upon. They're going off of religious texts, which we know about 80% of religious texts are completely bogus and don't really have any historical significance whatsoever, and saying that this is what happened. So you have a lot of religious people who are running around that honestly believe this shit happened, when in reality there's nothing that actually backs up what they're saying as being true, you know. And that's basically just saying it like it is. It's the truth. I've been doing a lot of reading and not really uh, doing the whole untethered part of the show, which is where I just come out and I say it. It's the truth. There's nothing that oh, there's very little evidence, is what I'm saying, that any of the stuff that relates to Moloch is actually true. They're going off of biblical verses that aren't even verified archaeologically. And I don't give a shit what you think about it. If you think freaking your faith is all you need, well, go ahead, believe that shit, okay? Um, I'm not going to go off of the text of somebody who wrote this down 2,000 years ago just because freaking that religion tells me, oh, you got to have faith. So I need to believe that this stuff actually took place when nothing actually backs it up whatsoever. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. If I found, that this site was here and it was written in the Bible, then that's cool. I understand that actually did take place. I understand the Babylonian exile. That there's proof that took place. There's archaeological evidence that backs that up. But a lot of this stuff, no, it's just complete garbage. Now, the Misha Stele, before I go any farther, is also called the Moabite stone. So just understand that, and I'll say it again. It's a 19th century BCE inscription, which was by King Misha of the Moab. They discovered it in 1868. Now, the Bible mentions uh, events that took place, specifically in 2 Kings 3. And the Stele records Misha's victories against Israel and his devotion to Chemosh, the national gods of the Moabs. And that is basically what it comes down to when I am discussing uh, what was it? I forgot what line I was on. But anyhow, the line that I just discussed. So after that, what I want to do is talk more about lines 12 through 14 of the Misha Stele, the Moabite stone. Now, this is in the middle section of the Stele, particularly lines 12 through 14, where Misha describes how he captured cities and dedicated them to Chemosh. This is where the interesting stuff gets into that I was talking about. Now, the translation of lines 12 through 14 is reconstructed text. And it says, and Chemosh said to me, go to Nebo against Israel. And I went by night and fought against it from the break of dawn until noon. I took it and slew all of them, 7,000 men, boys, women, girls, and pregnant women, because I had devoted them to Ashtar Chemosh. Now, Ashtar uh, uh, is Ishtar, just so everybody knows. Ashtar Chemosh. So that is a deity that is probably mixed with Chemosh, part of Ashtar associated with them. So um, the key interpretations of these lines is first the divine command from Chemosh. Okay, Misha claims that Chemosh ordered him to attack the Nebo, a city, attack Nebo, a city controlled by Israel. Now, this portrays Chemosh as an active war deity, similar to Yahweh's role in biblical conquests. Um, After that, we go to Hiram, which is total destruction. That's devoted to Chemosh. Okay, the phrase devoted them to Ashtar Chemosh suggests a harem, a sacred ban or total destruction in honor of a deity. This term is used similarly in biblical Hebrew, for example, in Joshua 6:17 regarding Jericho. It implies that the people were sacrificed or slaughtered as an offering to Chemosh. This takes us into mass killings as an act of devotion. Now, Misha states that he killed 7,000 men, boys, women, girls, and pregnant women. This mirrors the kind of sacred warfare and divine vengeance seen in parts of the Hebrew Bible. That would be found in 1 Samuel 15:3, where Saul is commanded to destroy the Amalekites. While it does not explicitly mention child sacrifice, the act of devoting people to a deity is suggestive of ritual slaughter. So now you have Chemosh's dual nature, the warrior and religious figure. Okay, the mention of Ashtar Chemosh suggests an amalgamation of Chemosh with the goddess Ashtar, which is Astarte and Ishtar mixed together. Or, well, actually, it's Astarte would be the Canaanite Phoenician version of Ishtar, which is Babylonian. Now, this reinforces the idea that Chemosh had aspects of both a war god and a fertility religious deity. Now, uh, there's also a real huge similarity between the actions of the Jewish people as well as the acts the of the Canaanites, and this goes back to something that I've always talked about. That's the one thing that I believe the Jews have a really hard time accepting is the fact that they are actually Canaanites. They want to bury that. They want to pretend like it's not true, when in reality, that's what they really are. They are Canaanites, and they moved away from their beliefs of, well, a lot of people have a hard time with the word paganism, but that's what it really is. You know, it's paganism, it's polytheism, whatever you want to call it. You know, I have a hard time saying polytheism, so that is something that I did want to bring up. Um, now, let's see here. Now, connections to biblical Kings 3:27 describes King Misha sacrificing his own son as a burnt offering when facing defeat. Uh, The Misha Stele confirms Misha's intense religious devotion to Kamesh. Okay, and this also strengthens the likelihood of human sacrifices, uh, that they were part of the Moabite practices. But the issue is there's nothing archaeological that backs this up. You know what I mean? This is all just text that's being written down. There's nothing there that actually says conclusively this is what took place. So going back over, the lines 12 through 14 of the Misha Stele. It describes mostly a mass slaughter dedicated to Kamesh, using language similar to what the biblical term harem was. That's called divine destruction. So the Jews believed that you could go into cities and destroy entire freaking cities and murder everybody inside of it, and they called it divine destruction. Okay, but at the same time, they're going to talk about Kamesh and say, he's worshiping babies to Moloch, that evil deity, that one that's associated to Kamash, this horrid, wretched baby killer. When in fact they were doing the same exact thing that this Stele is describing. The Misha Stele says that they went in and they murdered everybody and slaughtered them, and that's what it says. And of course, archaeology is going to support the idea that human offerings, including child sacrifice, may have been practiced by the Moabite religion tradition because of uh, neighboring belief systems. So that right there covers 2 Kings 3:27. And I noticed Mark came in. You want to say something, Mark? It's up to you. It's like I said, I know this is very controversial, so you don't have to say nothing if you don't want to. But figured I would mention that. Now, with that being done, I do want to go on to another issue, and I believe I've already covered Kamesh, didn't I? Yes, I've already covered my notes on Kamesh. Now, yeah, Jeremiah 48, 7, 13, no, 48, 7, 13, and 46. That's the one that I want to cover next. Now, Kamesh is a big one. He really is. This is the one that really ties a lot of this together. And that they believe that there is archaeological evidence that Kamesh was worshipped during the time period referred to in 1 Kings 11:7. That would have been around the 10th century BCE. Um, Now, the most significant piece of evidence is the Mesha Stele, the Moabite stone, whichever you want to call it. And this directly mentions Kamesh as the chief deity of the Moabites. Now, like I said, the Mesha Stele, or the Moabite stone, was in the 9th century BCE. It was discovered in 1868 in Dibon, Jordan, which is ancient Moab. And that is dated around 840 BCE, about a century after King Solomon. Um, the language was Moabite, and that's a language that's closely related to Hebrew. Um, Now, the content of what's there is the inscriptions, and it was commissioned by King Mesha of the Moab, and it describes how Kamesh helped him defeat Israel. The key mentions of Kamesh in the Mesha Steles is that Kamesh was mentioned as just the national god of Moab. You know what I mean? Mishu credits Kamesh for granting him victory over the Israelites. Um, Now, here I can give you an example of the inscriptions, and it says, "And Kamesh drove Israel out before me." Kamesh's anger and punishment, things of that nature. Now, the Staley mentions that Kamesh was angry with Moab, allowing Israel to oppress them, but later helped Mesha restore Moabite independence. Um, This inscription confirms that Kamesh was actively worshipped by the Moabites during the time of Solomon and beyond, supporting the biblical claim in 1 Kings 11:7, where Solomon built a huge place for Kamesh. They do have that. That's backed up. Um, Apart from the Mesha Stele, additional evidence of Kamesh includes Moabite pottery with inscriptions on it. Um, some pottery shards found in Jordan reference Kamesh. There's place names as well. There's some sites in Moab, which is modern Jordan, that have names that may have derived from Kamesh's cult. So they do have that. And other than that, all they have is biblical references. So, yeah, archaeological evidence, especially the Mesha Stele, does confirm that Kamesh was actively worshipped by the Moabites during and after Solomon's time. And that's if Solomon actually existed too. That's another rabbit hole that we could go down. Now, this is supposed to support biblical accounts in 1 Kings 11:7, where he does build a high place for Kamesh. Um, the 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 evidence that they have, though, about archaeological evidence when it comes to human sacrifice, though, you need to understand that this suggests that they say that it suggests the worship of Kamesh may have included like human sacrifice. They don't have anything concrete or substantial about it that confirms that it actually took place. You know what I mean? Um, and from what I see, they constantly always go back to Carthage. You know what I mean? It's like this has absolutely nothing to do with the Punic Wars or Carthage, but for some reason, when we discuss these Phoenician and Canaanite deities in the Levant, we have to bring Carthage into it. You know what I mean? It's just complete and utter nonsense, and they do it. I know I've mentioned that a few times, but it's something that really does get annoying when you do this research and you find this stuff out. Um, and to be honest, um, it's just nonsense. You start getting into a lot of this, the truths about what really took place back then. You know, it really wasn't about, worshiping this kind, loving God who cared about you. It was about going in and murdering and slaughtering everybody within villages because you worship this deity, and that doesn't exclude the Jewish. They did it too. It was the Canaanites, the Phoenicians, and this is the reality. This is how things worked. Um, they they weren't like us. So when you look at stuff like this, you have to kind of take yourself out of the situation and stop comparing your life and the way life is today to what was taking place back then. You have to look at it from their perspective, you know. And these people lived hard, dangerous lives. I mean, they really did. If you were a king and you lost in battle, you know, your enemies are going to freaking peel your skin off and freaking post it on the walls of Nineveh for everybody to look at, because you become a trophy, you know. They've even got they've even got stories where they took leaders and they chained them up to the freaking gates of Babylon so that people who came in and out of the city could see them chained there, you know. Um, so these weren't, you know, the golden age of the Bible. I get a kick out of that too. How everybody talks like there was a golden age that we came up out of, and the truth is, no, we didn't. If you read the material and you find out what really took place, you're going to find out that it was a horrible, horrible freaking mess where people got murdered and slaughtered by the thousands. So it's like this text, you know. It's I killed the whole population of the city as a spectacle for Kamesh and Moab, and that was the Meshisteli lines 12 through 14. So I'm gonna see what we got here for time. Oh wow, I've made it to the 2 hour mark. I'm doing good. Now next time I'm gonna take another quick break real quick, and I'm gonna come back. I'll do a 3 hour, and this time I am going to go over more of the blood libels, because I do want to get this out. I want to end this. This is going to be the last time I even discuss this shit. It's the most disgusting, horrible shit that you could ever talk about on the internet, much less in person with another human being. Because when people hear this and it's coming out of your mouth, they really freaking turn into like the worst assholes. They think that like you're a horrible person for even mentioning stuff like this. How dare you say stuff like this? There's no way that stuff happened in history. Or you're full of it. So when I get back after smoking my cigarette and drinking my coffee, I will go right into more about blood libels, and we'll kind of go into that and let people understand what's going on when you start talking about Moloch Ball and those dirty Jews and freaking blood libels and what they mean really, and how they inspired the Nazis to do what they did, and how it played out in the Middle Ages too. So I will be back. If you guys want to leave comments while I'm gone, leave comments, and I will respond to them when I get back. So I'm going to put some music on for you again, and I hope you enjoy. This is Mr. Robot's song too. It's called Redacted.